Ever wondered why people in the Bible seem to have unlocked the cheat code for super long lives? We're talking about folks like Methuselah, who apparently lived to the ripe old age of 969. That's not a typo, 969 years. Then there's Jared, cruising to 962, and Noah, who sailed past 950 years old before saying goodbye. Meanwhile, us modern folks in the fanciest countries are barely making it to 79. What's up with that? This mystery has been scratching heads for thousands of years. It's like these biblical characters found the secret level in the game of life, and we're still stuck trying to figure out the controls. Was there some kind of ancient superfood smoothie recipe we don't know about? Did they have a time turner like in Harry Potter, secretly living multiple lives at once? Now, before we dive into the theories, let's put on our thinking caps and consider something. Today, even with all our cool gadgets, medicine that would seem like magic to our ancestors, and enough information at our fingertips to make a librarian's head spin, we're nowhere near hitting the big 900. The oldest person ever recorded, Jean Calment from France, lived to 122 years and 164 days. That's super impressive, but it's still just a fraction of what the Bible says people used to live. So what gives? Were the writers of the Bible just really bad at math? Did they accidentally add an extra zero when jotting down ages? Or is there something more to this story? But before we get into it, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you want to get notified every time I upload a new video, click the bell icon as well. It really helps me out and I appreciate it a lot. Alright, let's get started. Alright, let's dive into some of the coolest theories out there. First up, we've got the Adam and Eve were built different theory. Some folks think that the original humans, fresh off the assembly line, were designed to live forever. But then they took a bite of that forbidden fruit, and suddenly, their forever young warranty expired. It's like they downloaded a virus to their perfect human software. Next up, we've got the no germs, no problems theory. Imagine a world with no nasty bacteria or viruses trying to crash your body's party. Some people think that's how it was back then. No diseases meant people could keep on trucking for centuries. But hold up, if there were no germs, how did people eventually die? Did they just get bored of living? And wouldn't that make Noah's job of preserving animal species way easier if nothing ever got sick? It's like having a pet rock, low maintenance, but not very exciting. Here's a fun one, the populating the planet party theory. What if people needed to live super long to fill up the empty Earth? Picture this. You're one of the first humans, and your job is to have enough kids to start a whole civilization. That's a lot of pressure. But if you've got 900 years to work with, suddenly it doesn't seem so tough. Though, wouldn't that lead to some really awkward family reunions with hundreds of generations all in one place? Imagine trying to fit all those candles on the family birthday cake. Last but not least, we've got the Paleo Diet Extreme Edition theory. Some people think it's all about the food. Maybe those ancient folks were eating the ultimate health food diet. No processed snacks, no sugary sodas, just good old-fashioned natural eats. But if that's true, why can't we recreate it today? Are we missing some secret ingredient? Ancient kale, perhaps? Or maybe they had access to some superfood that's gone extinct, like the avocado toast of the ancient world. So, what do you think? Are you team super long life or team these numbers are bananas? Or maybe you've got your own theory brewing? The cool thing about mysteries like this is that they keep us wondering and exploring. It's like a puzzle that's been challenging us for thousands of years, and we're still finding new pieces to fit into it. First up, let's talk about telomeres. No, that's not a new type of phone. They're like the protective caps at the end of our DNA strands. Imagine your DNA is like a shoelace, and telomeres are those plastic bits at the end that stop it from fraying. Every time your cells divide, these telomeres get a little shorter. When they get too short, your cells can't divide anymore, and that's part of why we age. So here's a wild thought. What if ancient humans had some sort of super telomeres? Maybe their DNA had extra protection, like a force field around those shoelace tips. Could that explain their long lives? But if that's true, why don't we see any evidence of it in our DNA today? Did the instruction manual for making super telomeres get lost in the mail somewhere along the way? Now, let's talk about something called oxidative stress. It's like rust, but for your body. Over time, as we breathe and eat and go about our lives, our cells accumulate damage from these things called free radicals. It's like our bodies are cars, and free radicals are those annoying pebbles that chip away at the paint job. What if the pre-flood world had less oxidative stress? Maybe the air was cleaner, the food was packed with more antioxidants, or their bodies were just better at dealing with free radicals. It could be like they had a super-powered car wash for their cells, keeping everything shiny and new for centuries. But wait, there's more. Some scientists think that aging is partly controlled by our genes. It's like we have an internal clock ticking away in our cells. What if ancient humans had their clocks set differently? Maybe their biological clocks were ticking much slower than ours do today. Here's another brain bender for you. What if time itself worked differently back then? I know, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. But some people have suggested that maybe the way they counted years was different. Imagine if a year to them was actually what we'd call a month. Suddenly, 900 years doesn't seem so crazy, right? It's more like 75 of our years. But then we run into another problem. If that's true, some people in the Bible would have been having kids when they were basically toddlers. Yikes. So, what do you think? Are these biblical lifespans a scientific mystery waiting to be cracked? Or is the answer hiding somewhere else? And here's a question to really make your brain cells do somersaults. If we suddenly discovered the secret to living for 900 years, would you want to? Imagine celebrating your 500th birthday. That's a lot of candles on the cake. In many ancient societies, numbers weren't just for counting. They were like secret codes packed with meaning. It's a bit like emoji today. When you send your friend a heart emoji, you're not just sending a picture of a heart, right? You're sending a whole message of love or friendship. Now, let's apply this idea to those massive ages in the Bible. Some scholars think that when the Bible says someone lived for 900 years, it's not about their actual age, but about how wise or important they were. It's like saying, this person was so awesome, it's like they lived for 900 years. It's a way of showing respect and highlighting their significance in history. But why use such specific numbers? Why not just say they lived for a really long time or were super duper old? Well, in ancient Hebrew culture, different numbers had special meanings. For example, the number 7 was considered perfect or complete. So when you see ages like 969 or 962, it could be a way of saying these people lived full, complete lives blessed by God. Here's another cool theory. Some researchers think these ages might be based on lunar cycles instead of solar years. In other words, they might have been counting months instead of years. If that's true, Methuselah's 969 years would be about 80 of our years. That's still a pretty impressive age, especially for ancient times. But wait, there's more. Some people have noticed that these super long lifespans start decreasing after the flood in Noah's story. It's like the flood washed away some of that longevity magic. Could this be a clue? Maybe it's a way of showing how the world changed after this major event. It's like the story is saying, things were different before the flood. People were closer to God and lived longer. Now, let's zoom out and look at the big picture. Stories about super long lives aren't unique to the Bible. Many ancient cultures have tales of people living for hundreds or thousands of years. In ancient Sumerian king lists, some kings supposedly reigned for tens of thousands of years. So what's going on here? Are all these cultures tapping into some lost secret of longevity? Or is this a common way that ancient people told stories about their past? Maybe these long ages are a way of stretching out history, of making the past seem bigger and more impressive. It's like when you're telling a story about that fish you caught, and somehow it gets bigger every time you tell it. Here's a mind-bending question for you. If these ages are symbolic, what exactly are they symbolizing? Could they be a way of measuring something other than time? Maybe they're a measure of wisdom, or closeness to God, or importance in history, or maybe they're a combination of all these things. So, what do you think? Are these biblical lifespans a literal record of how long people used to live? Or are they a rich, symbolic language that we're still learning to decode? And if they are symbolic, does that make them any less meaningful or important to the story?